seats. Okay, the beginning of the administrative portion of our meeting. Mr. Vacola, if you could read item number 5, please.
Item 5, 6900 Main Street, petition of Sikorsky Aircraft Corp. Seeking administrative approval for a coastal site plan review and erosion/sediment controls for a wastewater treatment facility incidental to a manufacturing facility.
Be here if you have any questions. What are we just asking him?
Okay, so sorry for the confusion here. We now, based on a judge's reprimand, we have to start advertising all of our administrative site. Anytime we're doing a site plan review, we need to advertise for it. So although it's an administrative item, it shows up on our agenda on the bottom. So I think our commissioners are now used to that, but I think our applicants are still kind of getting used to that process. So regarding the new industrial Sikorsky wastewater treatment plant, because it is within the coastal area management boundary, requires a coastal site plan review. The area, the general area is defined as shorelands. Shorelands are upland area at elevations in excess of 100-year still water flood level and located within the coastal boundary. We received correspondence from DEEP as they do their coastal site plan review referral from us. They had no comments regarding this application. As a condition of approval, town staff recommends that a licensed engineer give a letter to our office ensuring that the project complies with the town's MS4 stormwater permit, and we'll keep that on file with the application. And we should really be doing that with any time we're approving anything. That should be, nothing should be just approved anymore. Everything should be approved with that condition. We're telling the state that we're going to be doing it from now on, and it ensures that our projects are complying with our stormwater permit state. So, sorry to go off track, but that would be my one recommendation. As compliance, that a letter from a licensed engineer ensuring that the project complies with the town's MS4 stormwater permit with the state. We apply to the state of Connecticut, to DEEP, and let them know that we are treating the water before it's entering our stormwater system, which eventually goes into Long Island Sound. It's not a choice. It's every municipality is being required to do this. So that's something that we told the state that we're going to start enforcing. That's my recommendation. In terms of the erosion and site plan sediment control, similarly, we would have the letter from the licensed engineer ensuring that we would just want another copy of that letter. We would keep it in this file, so it wouldn't be a separate letter, just an additional copy for the erosion file. And then our regular standard conditions of approval for any erosion and sediment control application, should it be approved. Let's see, lastly, I have a correspondence that was sent to me from the applicant, from the conservation administrator, and I believe I handed that out to everyone, or I put it in everyone's place this morning, or this evening prior to the meeting. I'll just quickly read it into record. Good morning, David. I had a chance to read through all the application materials more closely, and according to the wetlands report, all wetlands and wetland soils within the scope of the wastewater treatment plant project are tidally influenced. Therefore, an inland wetlands and watercourses permit is not required. Tidal wetlands fall under the jurisdiction of the state, and an application needs to be made to DEEP through the OLISP program. So certainly keep the wetlands report. And she basically goes on and advises him to send some of the information that they had given her and use that for the state. Best, Christina Sent-Beto. We also had, we referred this to the Waterfront Harbor Management Commission. This on January 9th, 2019. They discussed let's see, where did they discussed this application. They had, let's see here, there were no objections to the project. They wanted to ensure that the applicant employs all appropriate best management practices during the construction to avoid any adverse impacts on the harbor management area. That's something that the town enforces either way. And then the second was that the development meet all the requirements for stormwater management, and that just reiterates the compliance with the town's MS4 stormwater permit. I don't believe we received any comments from the town engineer regarding this application, although he did review it, and I'm sure that if he had concerns that he would have let me know or put something in our file. So I have no concerns with the proposed project. And if you have any questions for me, I'd try to answer them the best I can.
Any questions for Mr. Hibansky, or I guess from Sikorsky's engineer who's here?
It looks fairly straightforward. I'm just wondering, so any of the water that's being processed through here, does that go into the town system, or is that discharged
My understanding
into the river,
is
or
its own standalone system.
its own self-contained system? Okay.
No? I'm hearing some, I'm seeing some head shaking.
No? No?
For the record, I'm David McKay, professional engineer with Weston and Sampson Engineers on behalf of Sikorsky. The existing and proposed industrial wastewater treatment facilities discharge to the town of Stratford's sanitary collection system.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I will make a motion to approve, and I really should have written down that's. You read it? Okay. Okay. Motion to approve with the condition that the applicant shall obtain from a licensed engineer ensuring the project's compliance with the Town of Stratford's MS4 stormwater permit, which shall be delivered and mailed to the Office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Planning and Zoning Office, and kept in the applicant's CAM file.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Solhavy. Do we have a second on that? Mr. Vacola. Any questions on the matter? Mr. Henrik?
Would that be also an approval for the erosion? No, this is just the campsite? Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? So moved, 5-0.
I missed that. That was a vote.
We voted 5-0 in favor, including your information. Yes. You have the conditions?
I'll get you those.
Okay. Okay, you want to do, all right, Mr. Henrik, can you read number 6, please?
Me too. 111 Research Drive, petition of Cubitech Medical Imaging seeking administrative approval for coastal site plan review to rebuild, expand a research and production facility in a MA zone.
Okay, so this application is to rebuild and expand a research and production facility in an MA zone. There was a fire at the site, and they're looking to rebuild and expand by putting on a second story. and some minor improvements to the first floor entryway, I think some flood proofing. The area is defined as a coastal flood hazard area. The 100-year coastal flood hazard area is defined by FEMA according to the town's Stratford Coastal Resources map. As I mentioned, the proposed application looks to rebuild and expand an existing research and production facility of medical imaging equipment, which was substantially destroyed in a fire. The expansion consists of a second-floor research and design office space incidental to the primary manufacturing and design use. The use is permitted as of right, and there are no footprint expansions except for potentially the front entrance. This fire restoration expansion will not require a special case, as the use is permitted as of right, and it falls underneath the 50,000 square foot threshold that would trigger a special case. Deep responded to the town's referral. It has no comments regarding this application. This application was also referred to the Waterfront Harbor Management Commission for review, to which no comments have been received as of this point. However, the last applicant for Sikorsky, they submitted the minutes, and I can tell you that the Waterfront Management Commission had the same exact comments. Just grab it here. Almost identical comments for this application, and I'll just quickly read it. Oh, I guess they didn't actually act on it. It said a motion was made by Mr. Corner, seconded by Mr. Mitchell, to place the foregoing application on the table. The motion passed unanimously. So this was January 9th. Double check when this was referred.
Well, if
As long as we refer
passed it.
within 30 days, we don't have to wait. Let's see. No, this was referred January 2nd, so I'm not sure when so that wouldn't meet the 30-day. We would have to wait an additional several more days, essentially, but they're not meeting until the second week in February. Just double check to make sure they didn't give me something or something didn't come in. Knowledge. Let's see. That's the state's comments. So it doesn't look like they've given us anything yet. I can ask George, what happened at the Harbor Waterfront meeting? Do you know? Did they table it and they didn't act on it?
I don't know.
They didn't act on it.
They didn't, I didn't,
Okay.
I don't think they acted on it.
Okay. Well, so it would be up to the commission as to what they decide they want to do. I mean, I think it's probably best to wait to the second week in February, give them one more meeting to see what the whole, what happened. No. I thought that they did. I think I had it confused with something else.
I'm just curious if there was some, it seems odd that they tabled it. I'm wondering if there was some reason why, that there was some information they were waiting for that might be pertinent.
It could have been that no one showed up to represent the application.
Oh, that's possible too.
Because there's not even any discussion here. It was another candidate.
And there's nobody here, obviously, to speak for them on this right now.
Well, this is the architect that we have
Oh.
here.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure who you were. Sorry.
But it doesn't sound like that he attended the meeting either. It might have been some, I'm not sure who was there, to be totally honest. Once we refer it out,
Yeah, I mean, we had a bunch of other stuff going on to the February 27th agenda. Unless there's a problem, I'll make a motion to table. Or would it be more appropriate to continue this until February 27th?
unless we meet earlier.
Unless you meet earlier.
Is this going to delay it that much?
A month.
Is there any way we can approve it?
Pending? Yeah, I'd be willing to do that, too. I mean, I don't see, from a zoning perspective, just looking at I don't see any issues here. I mean, as Commissioner Henrik suggested, I'm perfectly amenable to, can we approve it pending their approval?
I mean,
Well, it's-
typically that would, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, that's what I had just asked Jay,
Yeah.
you know, as long as we do a contingent on what the outcome of, this way, hopefully they're only delayed 2 weeks, not a whole month.
Yep.
And I would just advise that we don't make a habit of conditioning approval upon someone else's condition, because that usually doesn't fly. However, given the fact that the Waterfront Harbor Management Commission really looks at projects that are affecting the waterfront, this project is across the street on Lordship Boulevard, I would be shocked to find out that they had adverse comments, especially since the state had no adverse comments. It's not not impacting any water-dependent uses. I would be okay with that.
Any concerns from the town attorney's department?
Normally, you don't approve something dependent on somebody else's approval when you don't know what they're going to say. I would say that I would suggest that you not do that, as a habit. And just as a process point, you would want to have if you're relying on their approval, then you'd want to have it. I mean, I don't know anything about the project. Obviously, a new second floor is sort of a bigger deal than might be something that's just a replacement or repair.
I think just to follow the process correctly, I think let's just, I made a motion to table. I'll go along with that.
I have a motion by Mr. Solhavy to table, second by Mr. Henrik, I believe yep. Any further discussion? Seeing none, everyone say aye. There is no discussion on tabled items. Shut up. Passes 5-0. I was thinking of something else. No, disregard. Under other work, I need an approval of the minutes for the January 9th, 2019 meeting and the organizational meeting of January 9th, 2019. Motion by Mr. Henrik. Do I have a second by Mr. Solhavy? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So moved. Any discussion? Campsite plan review, 6900 Main Street, wastewater treatment facility. I think we need an approval for that, correct, Jay? We need the approval of 6900 Main Street?
Thought we just voted on that.
Oh, we already did that? Okay, so you don't need anything, okay.
You could vote, I mean, I think we can handle them both now. I think.
There's number 6. Number 6 on the agenda has sediment and erosion control applications, but there's nothing under them on our agenda.
Just don't have it listed, that's all.
Well, we could certainly waive the rules to add it to the agenda. It was advertised. Even we went above and beyond advertising it in the paper, which.
Well, it's both are in our agenda, but not on our, whatever this is here,
Right, the work agenda.
work agenda, yeah.
So the commission, if they feel comfortable, they could waive the rules to add it to the work agenda.
A motion to waive the rules to include?
So moved.
By Mr. Henrik, second by Mr. Solhavy. All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Opposed, 5-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Henrik.
and make a motion to approve 6900 Main Street, the erosion sediment controls for wastewater treatment facility, with that to include the town's standard stipulations, and that the applicant shall obtain a letter from a licensed engineer ensuring this project's compliance with the town of Stratford's MS4 stormwater permit. This letter shall be delivered or emailed to the Office of the Planning and Zoning and kept in the applicant's erosion and control sediment file.
Motion by Mr. Henrik. Do I have a second by Mr. Vacola? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.
One's for the erosion, one's for the...
Zoning enforcement study, nothing. Accessory apartment applications, 1751 Peters Lane, North Peters Lane.
And you are gonna write that little stipulation in our future things so we can
I will.
get it correctly?
Right.
You got it. So this is an application for an accessory apartment for a family member. Myself and the zoning enforcement officer sat down anytime we get one of these applications, and we go over it together to ensure that it complies with all the regulations. Once we determine that it does comply, we then bring it to the zoning commission administratively for a review and approval. You know, we have no problem with what's being proposed here. It meets all the regulations, and it's even something that we may want to consider if it's not something that this commission feels that they want to continue to see. You know, we're checking, if the project complies, it comes to you. And you all can weigh whether or not you still want to see these applications, or whether or not you want staff to just handle this. So I'll leave that up to you. We can talk about that another time. But staff has no concerns with this project. The project complies with everything in the regulations.
We had done that, I think, a while back, had turned it over to the administrator if it was compliant. So I know when Gary was here and I was on the commission years ago, we had done that. So I don't know if that expires or.
So what I'll do is I'll just review, because I believe the regulations, that may have happened, but I don't think it was ever taken out of the regulations that the zoning commission still has to go to the zoning commission. So I'll take a look at it and I'll report back next month as to exactly if any action needs to be taken by you all.
We don't need anything tonight on this, or we'll wait till you get back to us?
Make a motion I would make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Mr. Solhavy. Any further discussion? Mr. Hendrick?
Since it has been reviewed by the zoning administrator and it does meet all the town's regulations, I would suggest that we approve it. Looks like they've done their homework and it measures up.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We already did sediment planning projects. We don't see any other items. Goal settings. Mr. Solhavy?
Just a quick comment on it. I'm sure various other elected bodies and departments over the next few months will be taking a look at the the status of the property that formerly housed the Shakespeare Theater. And not tonight, obviously, but at some point in the future, perhaps it might be a good idea if we as a zoning commission just take a look and a quick review of the status of the land right now, what, if any, restrictions there are on it, and whether it applies to the entire property or or just portions of it, and also the zoning, the theater overlay zone that I think had been approved some years ago, whether that is still valid on there. So I'm not suggesting any particular course of action, but I'm sure many other commissioners as well have heard people talking, and I'm a little short on answers. And considering that there hasn't been much activity there in several years, it probably would not be a bad idea, maybe even a joint meeting with other bodies to just get a baseline as to what the status of everything is right now, just so that we can be mindful of that in any activity going forward, and make sure that we proactively address the needs of that land for the benefit of the town in the years to come. So just my comment on that.
I think that's a very good idea. I had a discussion with Mr. Rozowski in regards to the overlay, and he said he was going to look into it and, see what changes need to be made, or if they're going to stay in place. But and I don't know if John has discussed that with Jay yet, but he's aware of it.
And I'd be happy to provide just a brief report for either next month, probably next month, just kind of where the regulations sit for that site, because it's site-specific to their, just, I won't make it too long, but, what essentially can go there today without any changes. And then once you all see kind of what is allowed there today, then you might be able to better assess, well, we may want to tweak this until we understand what's happening, what's coming down the road.
Okay, thank you. Goal settings, anything on Army engine, methadone, parking, recommendations, POCD, TOD? Did I hear somebody make a motion to adjourn? Motion, huh? Motion by Mr. Hendrick to adjourn, second by Ms. Manis. Ms. Manis? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Linda, thanks for coming on such late notice.
Oh, yeah.
I got that.
Okay, I was going to email it to you when I get back down to the office.
I guess, I don't know, she must have forgotten to put it in my packet.
Which, that was 6900 Main? Did you get any of the administrative items?
The only one I forgot, I got a little bit on research drive.